Hello and welcome. I'm the Restless Kaiser.
I'm Johnny B.
And I'm Arthur.
But together we are Modeling for Advantage.
Well. Is
best one
everyone
yet.
tonight? Modeling wise, tonight I'm going low key. I am going to be trimming some trees before they get sprayed and reflocked.
Whoa! Calm yourself, Kaiser. That's quite the effort there. I'm painting some Colonial Marines from Aliens again. Vasquez. Oh yeah, that's the one. And Arthur, do you have any hobby on the table? You're going to be doing a lot of talking, I hope. But
I do actually, but it's off to the side, so I can't do any hobbying tonight. But I'm working
boo!
some Oathmark Barbarians.
Oh, nice. Yeah, North Star. Jobbies.
Yeah.
Very nice.
One game I've not played yet. You're going to catch up with the chat first?
Yeah, let's catch up with the chat first. All right. So Nick from Team Clueless Games is here. Rich John, Tony Halton, Alid, of course, working late in the office, listening to us in the background. I think Alid works for the MOT. He makes tanks or something. Clearly, this is the show to watch, right? Are we making an appearance at CrackCon on Saturday? We didn't get tickets, but I did talk to the guys, and they said that we were okay to just kind of like V-bomb, as long as we didn't, take up too much space, get in the way of what was going on.
Which
so
is fair.
We might be able to pop down. I was going to drop off a prize for the raffle as well, because I think the raffle is contributing to Callum's London Marathon gig. So I wanted to give him a prize for the raffle as well. So I think Callum's going to be there at the very least. Brush and Quill. That's just me. Sobs is here. Says good evening. Well, hogging dog, trimming his bush live. Well, there you go. And Walkabout Game says hello, gents. I've got a new microphone tonight because there've been a few problems over the past few weeks. Please say something in the comments if there is a problem with the audio, because I don't know. The only person that can't hear me is me.
And I'm too scared to tell him that he's screaming at the viewers.
Right. Okay, cool. All right. So over to you.
Yeah, with that all, it's down to me. Mr. Arthur, sir, if you would be so kind as to introduce yourself to the people at home and why you're on tonight.
Hello, people at home. I'm Arthur. I am 42. I live in Holland, or the Netherlands, as I should say. And I wrote a small book. With
nice.
Neil.
And wouldn't you know it? Oh, look, you both got a copy. I'm only just catching up on the screen there.
There's all sorts of flies around here. Go away. It is all started in the late 80s, I guess. My obsession with wargaming.
When He-Man was on the telly and all that stuff, it was a good time.
Yeah, Conan the Destroyer, stuff like that.
Oh! Yeah, previews on the VHSs you borrowed for Red Sonja coming out later.
Yeah.
Good times.
The 80s were the best. Mm-hmm. So I have an older brother, and he in the late 80s he bought this box set of ASCII 1 in 72nd scale Union infantry. I don't know if any one of you knows what I'm talking about.
Dead 172, like Airfix was more common in the UK, but it's that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. So I was really enthralled by the look of the box set and the figures, and that's how it sort of started our interest in history. And then came Hero Quest.
Yeah.
This is, I guess, a gateway game for most of us.
For a great many people, yeah.
Yeah. From then on, Battle Masters, it was called in England, I believe. Battle
Beautiful
Masters.
game.
Yeah, so I didn't I maybe I was too old by that point. I don't know when Battle Masters was. I don't recall it at all.
Hmm.
But John, you had Battle Masters, did you, John? Or you were into it?
I've got it. I've got it now.
You've got it now.
So yeah,
Right.
I'll have to get it painted. But they're all walking around on these little bases with flags and stuff.
Yes.
It's a genius game. I love it.
I love it too. So I started painting it with these enamel paints by Humbrol.
Yeah, getting high
That's
with every tin.
Yeah, the turpentine smell and
beautiful.
And then in 1995, we both walked into this store in a Dutch city here, and we discovered there was a lot more to Games Workshop than just HeroQuest. And then I got my my 4th edition Warhammer Fantasy starter box, with the high elves and night goblins and stuff.
Yeah, and the goblins.
The goblins in clown hats.
Goblins in clown hats with the yellow spears.
Nice.
Very bright, very bright.
Very bright.
So as always, it always starts in Games Workshop, but it seems that you've diverged back to historical, which is, when did that happen? I mean, I'm not saying you don't play fantasy and sci-fi now, but what made you turn around and go, do you know what? Because you could have done a fantasy game book for us, right?
Sure.
What made you turn around and go, do you know what? This is the one. This is where I'm going to be.
Well, I actually stopped with the hobby. I quit the hobby in around 2000. And when I discovered that the Perrys were doing plastic American Civil War figures, which is, of course, my first interest, American Civil War, I started, I returned to the hobby in, when was it? 2008 or 9, somewhere.
Okay.
So, that's when I started painting up the armies that I have right now, and started playing games like Black Powder and what have you. Pickett's Charge later on.
Right. Yeah. But about Fire and Fury, that's a big American Civil War one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a popular game among ACW players, but it really never caught on with me, to be honest.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So that was you had a long break from gaming. You heard the Perry twins were making stuff you were interested in. Which they're a lovely bunch of guys. They're I love Michael and Alan. We touched on them a few times mostly at Warlord events, to be honest. And they do really affordable plastic multi-pack miniatures.
When they came out, it just cost £12 as an introductory price.
Right.
That's
and
crazy.
They did a big starter set as well, don't they?
Yeah.
You can still get like a whole bunch of guys for a very small amount of money. But so that got you back into the hobby doing American Civil War. But obviously somewhere along the line you were playing Black Powder and Fire and Fury and these other games that we Pickett's Charge. How did someone who'd been out of the hobby for so long, got back into it, suddenly there you are, that's your name right there on the book, look. Your mum must be real pleased. How did this happen? What's the journey?
I actually showed a book to my mom 2 days ago, but she doesn't read English. So it looks great, and I'm very proud of you, but I can't understand a word you're saying. So
she's heartbroken that there isn't a Dutch version.
No, she's not into wargaming, so
right.
It's okay. So yeah, how did I get into it? Well, in 2005, I entered university in Groningen, a city in Holland. And
very Dutch sounding town.
Yes, Groningen.
Groningen. Nice.
Yeah, you have difficulty pronouncing the g.
I'm keeping a straight we can do the g, but we can't believe that it's a phoneme. Speaking.
Groningen. Anyway, I started studying American studies because that was my passion, and it still is. And I graduated a couple of years later at the University of Leiden. Leiden is probably a familiar sounding city.
Yeah.
Yes. yeah, and I always wanted to become an editor or a writer, and didn't really happen after finishing university.
No, because you were with tens of thousands of other people with the same plan.
And the same useless study. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
then came COVID.
Right, it's a COVID story.
It's a COVID story. No, me and my gaming buddies, we were really not that happy with the games we were playing, and me least of them. So when COVID came along, there was plenty of time to write because we couldn't get together, kept playing, and I decided, why not give it a go, write my own rules, and it started to develop very fast from that point onwards.
Okay, so that's I like it, because I think that probably, like watching tonight and just in the war games community in general, there are an awful lot of people who did exactly that. If COVID came along, they're not allowed to go to work, they're not allowed to go even for a walk or whatever it is. They're sat at home, they're thinking, all right, I'm going to make my own rule set. This rule set that I've been thinking about for years, I'm going to do it. Because I did it, and it never made it to print. I actually picked it back up again recently and started playing it again, because I really want to play a skirmish game with 54mm World War II miniatures, and it's going to happen. Cool. It's happening. We've got a working game now. It just needs writing up. Maybe we should talk after the show. Maybe you could write it for me. I just send you the tables. But I think a lot of people did similar things. There's only so many hours of playing, Stellaris or Hearts of Iron 4 before you have to start thinking, I actually have played enough of this. I want to do something else. So COVID. So did you get any games in during COVID? And did you do like online, like this is my webcam looking at my table, or you just sat in a box and wrote the rules?
Well, I actually sat right exactly here behind my PC, and there was I can't even remember how long the first lockdown went on. Maybe a year or so. So anyway, within that year, I wrote the basic framework of the book, and when we were allowed to get together again, we started playtesting, and that's how it developed.
That's how that happened.
Yeah.
So then you've got a game. You've taken it round to your friends, people you play with, who presumably are going to be reasonably happy with it. You know what they like. They know what you like. There were mechanics you maybe discussed before over a beer after games or whatever. So how did you migrate from that point to having a book in print by a big publishing house like Osprey? What was that journey?
It was actually a very short journey, to my big surprise, because the manuscript wasn't even fully completed when I sent it to Osprey. So I was maybe a year and a half within the writing process. I sent it to them. They didn't say no immediately, so I was pretty much surprised. There's a cat here running around my legs. Sorry for that.
It's your cat.
It's my cat, yeah.
Okay.
And they asked me to write down a sort of a proposal with selling points and what makes this game different from all the other games. So I handed that in, and got a confirmation that they wanted to take on the title. So
nice.
It was,
and at that point, did you have a title at that point?
I did.
Right.
And it was different than the title that it has now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So there was a bit shorter. Yeah.
No, I wrote a game in the early 2000s, and I called it Rebel Yell. Which
I feel there might already be a game called Rebel Yell.
There's probably an very old game that is called Rebel Yell.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, the guys at Osprey thought it was too much oriented towards the south, which I can get.
Yeah.
So
the slave states.
The slave states.
Yeah.
So they asked me to come up with other options.
Yeah.
And yeah, they eventually picked this one.
Nice. Because I imagine it's difficult finding a title that's a kind of recognizable phrase from the era that hasn't already been quite widely used.
Yeah, it has to be it has to have the Google factor. I'm not sure how they call it, but it has to be unique enough so you can, if you look,
you can find it easily.
Yeah. And
so a game that really suffered from that, and as you know, is Gale Force 9 Tanks. They had a game called Tanks. It's now called World of Tanks, the miniatures game.
Right.
And World of Tanks is very Googleable. So that's a big franchise for them to connect to. But yeah, that was quite difficult to find online because it was just called Tanks.
Right.
So, well, that's
you put that in the search bar.
But you Google that and you're not going to find this game.
You're never going to find it.
You're never going to find the game. You're going to find a lot of things that you might be interested in, but not that game. So there's maybe 2 Googleable, perhaps. All right. So they took on the title, and then from kind of, you said you had a kind of incomplete first draft. Well, you completed the manuscript, you sent it in, made a few edits, boom, we're done, or is it a bit more iterative than that?
No, I was, I think, halfway through what it has become, so around 40 pages. Most of the rules were written, but not the scenarios and not the additional rules or the advanced rules, I should say. And I had to hand it in. Well, what time are we living now? This is October.
It is October now, yeah.
July 2022, I had to send in the full manuscript, which I did without the scenarios because, we added them in later. And then a few months later, I received a PDF file of the book with many of their notes and questions. And it was actually, when I got it, it was full of red markings, and I thought, oh my god, where am I gonna start? So they had a lot of questions regarding the rules. I needed to do more clarifications, and that's when
your wording clearer.
Yeah, I had to make things clearer. Yeah, that's when you realize that writing a rules book that's a whole different story than writing some
rules.
Writing a regular book.
Right. Yeah, because of the language issues.
Language issues, and for me, things are clear in my head, but explaining them to a larger public is, of course, a different story.
Yeah. So certainly, one of the things I've been trying to work through with the system that I've been working on is nailing down language, like key language, like what is a turn, what is a round, what is an action, what is an activate, and consistent use of that language. Because otherwise it isn't clear how all of these things work.
Well, you really need playtesters and people want to proofread.
Yeah, proofreading.
And that's actually hard to find, to be honest with you.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, the Facebook group for the rule set has been alive for 4 years or something. And luckily there were people who were willing to read the rules, but not that many. So
right. And Osprey don't organize proofreaders for you?
No. Well, when they receive the manuscript, of course, yeah, but not before.
Right, yeah. Right. I'm with you. Okay. So should we take a little look inside?
Yes.
I don't know whether we've actually been clear about what it is. So I would describe it as a fast play mass battle American Civil War.
Yeah.
It is suits like almost corps size formations, certainly multiple brigades.
At least 2 or 3 brigades for small games, and you can up your games with to division or corps level. Yeah.
All right. So if I put the rule book on, and so this is this isn't quite the rule book, is it? This is like the last thing they sent to you before the final changes. Is that right?
That's correct.
All right.
I had to get the cat out of the room. Sorry for that.
Get the cat out of the room. Okay. So they did send us a review copy. I have had a chance to read it. I will say it was pretty readable. The order of the information is pretty logical. You can get going without having read and understood all of it. And if you skim through it once, you could have a go at playing it at table and then checking things. It was pretty followable. There's definitely things that I thought I needed to check. I just moved a few bases round on my own table to sort of see how it played through. And you do have a couple of videos. It's worth mentioning if anyone wants to see how it plays. Talk about the rules. What's that YouTube channel called?
The With Hot Lead and Cold Steel YouTube channel.
There you go. Same title, With Hot Lead and Cold Steel. And there's a couple of videos.
I've made a couple of videos,
which kind of explain how the rules work. And they're only 10 minutes long. There's a little bit of overlap, but it gives you a really good idea of how it works.
Yeah, I'm still in the process of doing it step by step. So the next video will be about issuing orders and following from that up.
All right, so let's start there then. So if there's something that can make me a bit nervous, it is playing a large scale game that's got orders in it. I don't know if anybody has ever played Spearhead. I certainly have, but the Artie Conliffe games, they can be quite brutal for the player experience because you commit to a kind of arrow of advance. It's like this division is marching on this axis, and it has to move at least half until it reaches its destination, and that's it. So, well, as a player, that kind of robs you of agency really badly, So issuing of orders can be a real straitjacket for the player experience. So tell us, look at that. See, Subs has got loads of great options for you. You could have had hot pants and cold showers, or you could have had hot pies and cold beers. These sound like great games. You need to work on them next, Arthur.
Hot pies and cold beers. What a great game.
Hot pies and cold beers would be a great game.
Never.
All right. No, I think he's making variations of your title.
Oh,
as other hot this, cold that. Suggestion for other games. All right. So tell us how orders works in your. I've got my army laid out. I got maybe 600 figures in this game, right? It's kind of intended to go up to that kind of size, right?
Yeah.
Right. So there's me. How do the orders work?
So a lot of players who play Black Powder or Picket Jars or those kinds of games are probably familiar with basics. It's pretty similar. Your army is divided into brigades. Each brigade, varies from scenario to scenario how large it is. Let's say 4 regiments per brigade on average. Mm-hmm. Each brigade has its own commander. And at the start of the game, or at the start of a round of turns, you roll for aid camps. So aid camps are used to help you better your chances of issuing orders. Mm-hmm. Aid camps were used by commanders to ride down the battlefield on a horse with a written or spoken order, telling commanders what they had to do. Mm-hmm. So there is this small table with orders. I think you are on the right page. It's a bit different.
The order table tells you what you need as a success number.
Yes, exactly.
Can we see that now?
Yeah, I can see it. The game works with D10s. Mm-hmm. And the basic orders are a 1 move is a forward move. You need a 4+ or higher. That's self-explanatory. 4+. 2 moves is 5+. 3 moves 6+, and a charge order, which is a bit more difficult because, charging was not really popular in the period. You need an 8+.
Yeah, charging was a death sentence, I think, in the period.
Exactly.
Mostly.
Yeah. So,
but as gamers, we want to do it.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes, yeah. And this is where the AD camps come in. Each side rolls a d5, so that's half of a d10.
See if I can find that. Carry on.
Yeah, and you get +1. So, for instance, if you roll a 4, that's 2 AD camps. +1 is 3 for your entire army, which you can use.
Yeah, so I wasn't sure when I had a read through on the allocation of aid camps. Can you do that after you've rolled the dice?
After you roll the order dice?
Yeah.
No, you need to say it before giving the order.
Right. So at the start of my orders phase, I get so many aid camps. I then allocate them to my sub-commanders and their modifiers for their roles.
Precisely. So let's say you want to move 3 times, which is a 6+ normally, and you use 2 AD camps, you need a 4+ instead of a 6+.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Magic. All right. And that was from this table here.
Yeah.
All right. Now, also says in here that fatigue penalty. Am I right in, is my memory servant? That's basically a point of damage. That's like a casualty.
Yeah. Units have a unit coherency value, which is a combined stat line for damage from actual fighting and damage from fatigue or troops that are that fall out of the line because they're too tired or whatever.
Or they're no longer fighting effectively. They might be in the line, but they're shaken or whatever. Yeah.
So throughout the years, I've played many of those games, and I always thought it strange that you can order your troops all across the table without there being some sort of penalty or consequence.
Right.
So if you move your troops faster, in this case, three moves instead of 2 or 1, you will receive 1 fatigue penalty as a consequence of them having to do a forced march.
Yeah, yeah, and to be realistic about casualties, even historical battles which are regarded as massacres, 10 or 15% casualties is huge. It's not that all these men are dead or wounded. They're just no longer fighting at all, effectively.
Exactly.
It's the loss of cohesion and will to fight really is the problem.
Yeah.
So tying fatigue in with that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah.
But I mean, as a player, you don't like that, do you? As a player, you don't want to take damage, which is what it is. You know, you don't want to take damage.
Yeah. Well, the question arises. Well, why should I even order my troops? Why should I give them 3 moves at once? Sometimes in some scenarios you have to, because of time limitations or pressure to take a position somewhere on the table before the enemy does. So in some cases you just have to.
Yeah. Okay. But with your order system, you are free to move that unit, or you test per brigade. Presumably, you don't test per regiment.
No,
you test per brigade. So that's probably 4 regiments. The historic numbers are like 2 to 7, aren't they? The brigades are no 2 brigades of the same size in an army. But
especially during campaigns, there were even brigades of 1 or 2 regiments.
Because the casualties and amalgamation.
Because of casualties and reorganizations and stuff like that.
Yeah. But you're fairly free to move those units. You're not restricted on. They don't have to move on a set path or anything like that. If you pass your order test, you can move them how you want to move them within coherency rules.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't kind of have to write an order down saying this regiment attacks this on turn 3, that kind of stuff.
It's more of a macro management idea than a micro management, because playing when it comes to playing these large games, those kind of details they're not really important.
No, I agree. Although you do have some rules in there that I was a little bit surprised. Maybe we'll get them to. Right. So you've got your foo bar table, What was you thinking here? Johnny loves a foobar table. So this is if you roll a non-modified 1, right?
Yeah.
If you roll an unmodified 1.
1 is always a failure, no matter what. The only exception is sharpshooters, but we'll probably get to there later on. There always has to be some kind of what's the word?
Detriment.
Yeah, when you don't know what's going to happen, you know.
Right. Yeah. The wild card effect. The completely random, uncontrollable. Yeah. The genuine fog of war stuff.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah. All right. I mean, I when it happens to me, I don't like it. But I think on balance, I do kind of like a foobar table. All I would say to that from playtesting is 1 in 10 feels common. That's all I would say about that. If it's an unmodified 1, that means it's happening a couple of times a game in a reasonable sized game.
But I made it. I wrote them down in such a way that I think they're manageable. They're not overly destructive of your army.
They're not shoot your own guys and things like that. That's not on there, is it?
I don't think so. No.
It might be. Charges forward. I mean, that's pretty serious, isn't it? On the 10, give them the cold steel, charge forward 3 turns, off they go. And that definitely, so that's not about the men, is it? That's also about the colonels and the captains, who are also officers who are expected to exercise some initiative. Yeah. Because I think in the Civil War, it was still, if you want to finish off a beaten enemy, then you charge it, but he needs to be pretty whooped before you can do that.
Yeah, they favorably they had to have been running already. If you
right, yeah. Ideally, they're already running.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, yeah. So there's your foobar, lost officer.
So yeah, if you roll a 1 on the unexpected event table, your officer gets shot.
Yeah. Well, but you might get a better one.
You might get a better one, yeah.
Right, because somebody does just step into that role.
A lot of these officers were appointed, and they might not have even been the best choice.
Yeah, absolutely. General Burnside. I mean, there's a lot of Union guys want that badge, but anyway, right. So you've got then, in terms of formations, there's 2 aspects of this. The first is regimental formation. So the regiment is your basic combat element, the smallest independent unit on the table.
Yeah.
And it has a number of stands equal to its strength, plus 1. So the flag company, and then each extra base is another rank of strength, right?
Yeah.
Essentially. And these are the illustrated formations for that, which is pretty common. So we've got column, we've got a march column, we've got a line, and then this you called an assault column or something. Is that right?
Column, yeah.
Assault column. All right. Yeah. Assault column.
Which was hardly used, but it had to be there.
Yeah. But then you've got brigade formations. So I should have said your regiment formations they fire and fight differently depending on the formation they're in.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, you're going to be marching or in a line, right? If you're fighting, you're in a line, and if you've got to move any distance, you're marching.
Depending on how far away you're from the enemy, yeah, exactly, yeah.
So your brigade formations then you've got here. So this is how each regiment or each unit is deployed within them. Talk us through this a little bit.
Well, these are optional formations, of course. You can deploy your brigade however you want, but these are the textbook formations that were used throughout the Civil War, depending on how well they were trained, the guys, of course. So you got your regiment or your brigade in multiple lines, which is the left on the top left.
And this is very deep, For a war games table,
Yeah.
this is multiple regiments deep.
Yeah. I can't really recall how deep they were in real life. I think about 50 yards apart. I think I wrote it down somewhere. But anyway, these brigades deployed in multiple lines were ordered to do so because it allowed communication to be more fluent, and it was easier to sort of rearrange regiments when it needed to be. Of course, the first regiment would take a lot of casualties and had to be relieved by the second and the third and so forth. So that's why regiments or brigades were formed in such a way. Then we go to in echelon, which is the two on the right side. And they could either be slanted forward or backwards. It was done to protect one's flank.
Yeah. So I know because the size of these battles by the time you have not like Bull Run or First Manassas or whatever you prefer, but by the time you get in halfway through the war, these armies are very, very large.
Yeah.
And therefore the space on the battlefield is also huge. And I was looking at Gettysburg, and you see some of the kind of divisional attacks. It's like there's a lot of space on my flank.
Yeah.
With enemy troops, because it's not like the whole line, unlike in a war game, the whole line doesn't move forwards at once. Just a section of it does. So you see why refusing that flank in echelon becomes really important, because if those other guys start maneuvering, we can be completely outflanked while we're attacking across this space, because the distances are quite substantial because of the range of the weapons and so forth, and the size of the armies. So definitely seen the echelon stuff for attacking, right?
Yeah, I think you can compare it to a what's the formation called by the Greeks?
Phalanx.
A phalanx, yeah, where one guy would protect the flank of the other guy. I think that's sort of how this works as well.
Yeah, and there's something about impetus as well with it when it's refused back in either direction, because more units hit, so the combat kind of escalates on the defender. There's a lot of stuff. It's not a new formation for the period, but it is quite a common one. All right, and then your last one on the bottom left there, then.
Yeah, a brigade in attack formation, which wasn't used a lot. It was mostly used by the end of the war, when troops were starting to entrench.
Right.
I think one of the first instances was during the Battle of Spotsylvania, where regiments were formed themselves in an attack column, and those attack columns were placed one behind the other to punch a small hole within the defensive line of the Confederates, and the regiments behind the first regiment could deploy to the left and the right to sort of take advantage of the breach
as the attack develops or all goes through. Yeah, because what you've got in that later period, when Gettysburg being the famous one, is the beginnings of what the First World War is going to. These are storming trenches, as opposed to fighting against stone walls and rail fences. These are actually attacking fortifications. So you need that density of mass. The shooting just ain't going to kill anybody in a trench. You're going to have to storm it.
And the Confederates, they had no other choice than to entrench, because they were losing men so fast they couldn't replace them anymore. So they just couldn't do a stand-up fight again or anymore like in 1863 or earlier.
Well, but they lost most of the territory to the west as well. When they lost Vicksburg, we talk all about the War of the Potomac and the fighting in the east, and that's where all the battles are. But when they lose control of the Mississippi, the war's over for them.
Basically, yeah.
That's where the war was lost.
The war was won in the west by the Union,
Right. So anyway, brigade in column. So do you get any advantages for using these formations? Yeah. Oh yeah, you do. Okay, so yeah, I'm seeing there. So if you're in echelon, what's your advantage here?
You're never counted as being outflanked when you're charged in the flank. So troops in echelon can face the charging opponent freely.
Right.
Yeah. And in a brigade in multiple lines, they get a +1 on their order test.
And +1 to morale tests, I see.
Yes, and they do not have the. They can ignore the passing of the line test, which will come later on.
That's the interpenetration test.
Yeah.
So that's generally speaking, that's very strong, but that is the most common formation to use, right? Yeah, makes sense.
The only thing that is a problem with brigade in multiple lines, especially when they're on their own, is that their firing frontage is very small.
Yeah. The number of rifles or muskets per per men. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
All right. So your movement's pretty generous. It's base of 10 inches. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Base of 10, bonus for being in column, and a bonus for being on road. You do have wheeling, but you do allow oblique movement as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a blend. It's not free movement like you get in Flames of War or something. You just move in any direction.
No, I really wanted to portray the textbook maneuvers in the game, but still, it's just one move to change your formation or make a maneuver.
Yeah, and you can take multiple moves in a turn if you with the right kind of order test. Yeah, all right, but you do allow wiggling. Oblique movement exists. You can move. Is it up to 45 degrees?
Yeah,
you move a couple of inches less.
Well, you just measure from the side that is moving, and see how many inches you want to go.
Yeah. Okay, but if you want to change facing, you have to wheel or turn.
Yeah.
But wheel, you just measure from the outside. These are very familiar. People know how this.
Yeah, you'll see these in other rule sets as well.
Passing of the line, so you have rules for moving those rear units through. Who can shoot? Yeah, these were all pretty thing. All right, so ranges. Let's talk about fighting a little bit.
Yeah.
So we've got rifled muskets, smoothbore muskets, and repeating rifles for all 12 repeating rifles, which were issued during the war. A handful of Union cavalrymen, but you've got some rules for them. All right.
Yeah.
Go on, tell us what you're thinking here. What's you've got a number of range bands. So tell us the tip.
Well, I try to keep it simple, but looking at this table, it might look a bit difficult, but it really is simple. So there are 3 types of ranges, which is effective range is furthest away. Then you got your short range and your point blank range. When people talk about Civil War and the advent of modern weapons, they always say, the rifled musket was so great because it could reach so far. It had a longer range, but that was only theoretical.
Right.
It depended on who was wielding the weapon, of course, and the circumstances and terrain you were on. So effective range is basically your long range fire.
Yeah.
And the closer you get to your enemy, the more effective they become.
Yeah.
So you get your +1 on to hit on short range, and I believe 2+ on point blank range. And in addition to that, a natural roll of 10 will cause more wounds than just a regular hit.
Right.
Because of the destructiveness of the weapon.
Right. And the only difference between these 3 weapon types is their range bands.
Yeah. And repeating rifles, they have an extra rule, of course.
Oh, they've got an extra rule.
Yeah. It's some more shoot dice.
Okay, cool. You do have rules for what do you call it? Where you refuse a flank. I know a regiment can make have some of its companies re-angle, and you can still take some shooting, but they're probably a bit more niche rules. Let's have a little bit of a look at how your unit hit points work. Where's that table? Because I think that's one of the things that keeps this game really clean and simple. Was it earlier? The unit hit point table and dice rolled. Maybe that was earlier. And I've gone.
Yeah, you're too far ahead now.
I'm too far ahead. Did it come before?
It should be in the shooting section. Shoot.
There's fire, shooting.
Yeah. A little further forward. Yeah. You were there just a moment ago.
Was I?
Yeah,
Did I skip past it?
Shooting here.
Shooting. So we've got ranges.
Yeah.
We've got modifiers.
And this is your... I think this is it.
Natural 10. Damage. Where's the table with the unit? You know, the number of melee dice and so forth.
Oh, there's probably an exemplary stat line at the start of the rules, but you can also scroll towards the end of the rules to the army lists.
Let's go to the back here. Scenarios. Because I think this table, more than anything else, kind of gives people an idea. You know the one I'm talking about? It says how many dice you get fighting. This one, infantry units, artillery units. All right. I think if you're a war gamer, you can look at this table and you can go, all right, once you understand how this works, you get a lot of the idea of the game.
Yeah.
So if you talk us through this table then, Arthur.
So again, I try to keep it as simple as possible. There's not too many stat lines, I think. It's actually, I took inspiration from, is it Warhammer 4th edition, which I started playing back in the day.
Right.
Anyway, you got your unit type, of course. Then you got the size of the unit, which can vary from large, average, small, or tiny. Then you have your move stat line, and then we get to shoot, which consists of two numbers. The first one is the number of dice you get. So a large infantry regiment would have 8 dice to shoot with, and you would hit on a 6+ as a basis. Same goes for melee, and then we get to the combined stat line unit coherency, which we talked about earlier. That's the number of hits you can get at a maximum, which is generally not necessary because they will run away.
Before that.
Yeah, well before that. Yeah. And then you have your morale, and as you can see, shoot, melee, and morale. Those stat lines will decrease when the unit becomes weaker or smaller.
So this seems, my interpretation, this is a kind of a core aspect of how the game plays out in terms of taking damage, is that the units effectively just become smaller as they take casualties.
Yeah.
So and these are numbers of bases. So a tiny regiment is so you get a command base, and then for each extra base you're 1 unit size, right? So a large regiment has got 5 bases.
Yeah. Well, depending on how people want to play it, of course. They're
if their basing convention is different, they may have more.
Yeah.
But when you take 6 points of damage from that large unit, it becomes an average unit.
Yeah.
So you very easy as you remove a stand, and now a large unit.
Yeah.
Now that's not that all of that company is dead. It's just that you've lost that much fighting effectiveness, morale, etc.
exactly.
So it's not. It's nice because it's got that, like, when a regiment shoots, you do throw quite a few dice, and that's good, rather than one.
Yeah.
Because I like that because it levels out randomness. Now it's still a bit random, but the less dice you roll, the more random things are. When you roll lots of dice, it tends to even out.
That was my thought when I designed the rules. I wanted D10s, which is also a type of dice that is, I think, represents, or you get more. It becomes less swingy than a D6.
Okay.
At least that's my experience, and I don't like games where you only roll 1 or 2 dice per unit, because that just doesn't feel right.
Because they often do nothing rather than something.
And game can take hours and hours, and if you roll more dice, I think you will have a result more speedily
and more granularity.
Yeah,
you could have 1 hit point per stand, but you've got 6, and you just roll a lot more dice to achieve those 6 hits, right? Yeah,
it feels like that. It feels like you're actually commanding large units with, when you have a unit currency that is a lot higher than for example 3. And the number of dice also helps with the fact that you actually going to do something with that regiment.
Right. So that's your infantry, and broadly speaking, the American Civil War, it is an infantryman's war.
Yeah.
But the other big part of that is artillery. So your artillery works on similar basis, except you don't have a command stand, right? So it's small, medium, and large is 1, 2, 3 bases of artillery.
Yeah, and also 6 points per base.
6 points per stand. Morale is slightly better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that has to do with the fact that, judging from actual reports, artillerymen were actually more confident behind their artillery pieces than infantrymen in the field, because they had, of course, cover behind them.
Yeah, and a very powerful weapon.
Yeah. Broomstick.
So one of the features of the American Civil War is the fact that we've got the introduction of rifled artillery. We've got our 10-pounders and our Parrots and our, is it Whitworth? There's naval rifles. Is that a factor in your rules?
Yeah. When you skip to the artillery section of the rules.
Right, not on this particular table here, yeah.
Yeah. You will see there are 4 types of ammunition you can pick between. So you got your canister at short range or point blank range. You got your shell, case, and what the other one called? Solid shot. Yeah. And they all do different things in the game. So, for example, a solid shot, when fired from a Napoleon smoothbore gun, that shot can bounce across the field, which was not possible for rifled guns, but those were used to fire at other artillery pieces, counter battery fire to do more damage.
To dismount the guns.
Yeah, to disable the limber teams and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then you got your shell, which I believe I always get them confused. Are they shell or case? One of them forces morale checks, and the other does 2 damage per damage point.
Right. Okay.
And canister, of course, which is pretty lethal when troops get in the way. Yeah.
I don't want to nitpick, but I think case and canister are the same thing.
No, they're not. A case shot were projectiles that were fired above troops that were going to explode, and
that's a shell.
Well, I have it from first-hand account. So
okay, maybe the Napoleonic terms are different to the Civil War terms.
Probably, yeah.
Then maybe that's what it is. All right. Okay, so you've got cavalry in here. Now, this is a funny one because there is a lot of cavalry in the Civil War, but it's Confederate cavalry and it often isn't taking place on the battlefield. The Union cavalry have usually got, I mean, Subs mentioned it here, Union cavalry are often quite well equipped. They often have quite modern rifles or repeaters, and they're going to forward deploy and shoot, right?
Yeah.
Generally. But you've got some rules in there for them. Oh, and you got them mounted and dismounted. Are their dismounted stats basically the same as infantry of the same size? No, they're not.
No, melee gets worse when you dismount, but the firing power gets better when you're dismounted.
Right, so you want the players to make a firm choice about which mode he's in. Right, okay, yeah, I get it. All right, and you got loads of pictures of this is the Perry's collection, isn't it?
Yeah.
The actual photos from the.
Yeah, they were willing to share their photographs of their game, so that's great. Which
is nice. And then you've got optional rules at the back, or extra rules, advanced rules. Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, these are.
So you got your more specific Union and Confederate rules,
mm-hmm.
and army specific rules like Union batteries were larger, generally speaking, than Confederate batteries. You got your rebel yell, you got your Union hurrah, things like that. U.S. African troops.
Yeah.
You can upgrade your troops to veterans.
Yeah. Right. But that's Confederate veterans. Oh no, they can just have more of them.
Yeah, there's a list of general types of units that both can use, and you got your Union and Confederate specific rules.
Right. Yeah. Nice. And then you got some scenarios at the back.
Yeah.
There you go. Boom.
Yeah. I had hoped to include more, but it was 80 pages already, so Osprey just couldn't fit in anymore. There are three scenarios, 2 historical and 1 general to learn the rules.
Yeah, right. Is that the first one by any chance?
Yeah, that's the first one. Yeah.
Let's have a look at that first one.
Just stand-up battle.
You'd say, oh yeah, it's just called Brigade 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so this is giving you an indication of the size of game, the size that you're expecting the game to be played.
Big.
That's
big games. Yeah.
20 infantry regiments and 3 cavalry regiments. Yeah, and it's
definitely not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah, but so let's be realistic about this. Let's put those away. You're going to play that game with 25 regiments, 4 batteries of artillery. How long is it going to take you to play that game? Because that's a lot of figures. I don't know. My maths is. It's 25 times 20. 1,000?
It is a lot of figures, and of course, it also depends on how people construct their armies. But you're going to go through your units pretty fast.
Get mauled pretty quick, do they?
Yeah, they're going to be mauled pretty quickly, and they're going to run away pretty quickly as well. Because as maybe we can skip back to the morale section. The morale for infantry, especially, is pretty bad.
Oh yeah. If maybe that wasn't so clear, we didn't actually talk about the morale figure. So if you think this is a D10 roll, your average. If you lose a stand, you have to take a morale test. Is that right?
Yeah, every time you lose a stand, you must take a morale check.
So full strength regiment loses a stand, it needs a 7 up not to run.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's your big fresh regiments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have to realize when you read these accounts of battles, they would get up close to each other and they would just annihilate each other with the rifled guns, the rifled muskets, and the type of damage these weapons did to troops was, horrific.
Mm.
And we have to remember also these were not professional soldiers; these were citizen soldiers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I suppose if you fight in like Bull Run or something, there's a tiny professional army that is split in half at the beginning of the war, but after that, everybody. But that's again one of the differences between your Confederate and your Union armies, is your Confederate guys. It's the same guys 5 years later. They're just survivors, right?
Yeah.
Whereas the Union has the power to raise new regiments, new divisions, a new army for every campaign season.
Yeah, well, the Union had more troops, but they were generally either of average or regular, what do you call it? Experience level or either green.
Yeah.
The Confederate Army, basically from mid-war to the late war, was all veterans.
It's the same guys that survived the last battle with a handful of their boys joining them.
Yeah.
They're just getting smaller and smaller.
Grim.
Subs
asked briefly, going back to the scale of what you're, potentially playing. Is this set designed for 28mm? It doesn't really matter. It's agnostic. Is it for scale size? It's whatever you're playing.
It is agnostic. Cool. Well, we generally play with 28mm, and it was the ranges and the distances in the rules reflect that. But there's a small section somewhere at the start of the book with some suggestions for like 15mm or 10mm.
Sweet, that's good to know.
Yeah. So in that respect, it's a lot like black powder. It's like, if your base size is different from the other guy, work out some kind of comparable frontage and try and work through that. Because you take hit points of damage rather than stands per se, you can track it even if stands don't quite match up in that way.
You could even play without the base removal if you wanted to. Then you would just need to have a system in place where you can see how big a unit is.
A D24.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool.
So he's saying, how many figures do I need to play? So I just did 25 times. So 25 units of 20 figures, which is a small regiment, and for 25mm is 500 figures.
And it would be more if you play with Warlord's Epic Scale.
Yeah. So, and so that's the kind of size that and how long would that game take?
We played a game last Friday with 3 brigades per side at the club, and we did it in 2.5 hours.
But that's half the size of your starting battle.
Yeah, but that was with players who hadn't never played a game.
Okay.
Because the results are fast.
The results are.
You've got a lot of models, but the results are very fast.
It might as well be that you committed a fresh brigade, and all your units get shot in the first or second turn, and they all ran away.
Right. And okay. So that brings us back, because one of the other things that I always want war games rules to encourage, but they never seem to be able to do it, is encouraging you to fight deep. It's often pointless. If you fight deep, it just means you shoot with less figures. But when your ranks are brittle, then you need to fight deep to not have big holes in your line.
Yeah.
So that kind of fight in what did you call it? In successive lines.
Yeah, multiple lines. Yeah.
In multiple lines. If you think about how fragile the infantry units actually are, you probably do want to deploy like that.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you think that each brigade, so you're going to be 4 regiments deep as opposed to 4 regiments wide in most cases.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't need as big a table as you might think.
Yeah. It's just so difficult to not line them all out.
That. Like in Black Powder or whatever, you'd never have 4 regiments one behind the other.
No.
Across the width of the table.
It's difficult because you also want the open space to be able to maneuver and make flank charges, and having your troops all in multiple lines is great, but normally speaking, that would open up your one of your flanks.
Mm. So on this kind of half-size game that you played, was that on a standard 6x4 table?
No, that was on a we play in centimeters, 180 by 270 centimeters. I'm not sure how that in feet, but
I think that's about 6x4. I think.
No, it's quite a bit
less.
Yeah, larger.
Is it?
So
8x5. Who knows?
8x5. Yeah.
I'm guessing. That was a guess.
So 6x4 is 180 by 120.
2 meters is 6'6".
2 meters.
And you said you were 180. So 180 is just a bit less than 6 foot.
And maybe I'm confused with the strange way you British measure stuff.
Well, we're funny because we are mostly metric in our everyday lives, but war games remain in inches is the thing. And to say that when people are asking about scale and stuff, one of the things you suggest, isn't it? If you play 15 mil, either half the ranges or just convert them to centimeters. Just use centimeters instead of inches. Just one of those two things which you prefer. And that's what we tried doing Black Powder with centimeters with the 12 mil, and we found that those distances were about right. To allow that,
or come up with your own distances, which is people are free to do that as well, of course.
Yeah, that's good.
And then is it playable on smaller scales to reduce the table size? I mean, my gut feeling looking at this is it feels like a 6 mil game. It feels like a game which is if you're gonna have that many figures and you ever want to get them painted in one lifetime, you might want to do it in 6 mil. But the main thing is it's your frontage which is going to determine how much space you need. Yeah, because those epic stands are 80 mil wide. Yeah, so they're not narrow than the 40 mil that a lot of people put their 28 mil figures on. Yeah, you're actually going to need more space if you use that, or you need to rethink how you're calculating the numbers.
Yeah. That's possible, of course. It's not written in stone, so if you have a different system of basing and how you want to do it, that's fine, of course.
That's good. Right. Sounds like a fun rule set.
We are definitely going to have a look at it, but we've only got about 2 brigades per side and a couple of cavalry regiments for the Confederates.
Still enough to get a feel for it, I hope.
We'll get a feel for the game. We'll have to find out, make sure we've got enough D10s. We've got some D10s.
Oh, you need a maximum of 8 per side. If you're playing with large regiments.
Yeah, that's right. So we'll be giving it a go. So just remind the beautiful people at home where they can find out more about With Hot Lead and Cold Steel.
There's a YouTube channel which I started a couple of weeks ago, so you can visit that. And there's a Facebook group which you can also become a member of. And I will try to post once a week a new video for explaining how the rules work.
Very nice. And if we ever find ourselves in Holland, we're going to look you up and you can give us a game, right? So
sure.
That is With Hot Lead, Cold Steel. I can't remember because you sent me a free one on $14.99 or $25 US, 33 Canadian. And it's available. Is it available now or is it coming out very soon?
October 26th.
So it's not out quite yet.
A couple of days, yeah.
A couple of days.
And it's 21 euros.
Oh, yeah, the euro price is not on here.
Yeah,
that's a big one.
There you go, 21 euros. Hobby-wise then, so I did... So these are Javis Scenics trees. They're about £3 each. So they're not expensive for the size. And I've just been through cutting some of it because it's incredibly regular looking. So the first step is to cut some of the stems off just to break up the shape of it. So this one I took quite a big chunk out of one side. The next step with these, because a few people ask how we do these, the whole thing will be sprayed dark brown, including the flock, and then it'll be reflocked because this is a really vivid green. I don't like it, but by spraying it brown, it means whatever's underneath the new flock looks like it's part of the structure of the tree and in darkness.
Which brand is
that? They're from Javis Scenics. They're a fairly cheap scenic company. We get from them, and they do a few. But with 28mm, I mean, everybody's trees are just much too small. Go and stand next to a tree. It isn't twice the height of a man. It's 20 times the height of a man. The tree, my plum tree is more than twice the height of a man, and it's a tiny tree. So I'm always looking for bigger trees, to be honest.
I got my trees from the Last Valley.
The Last Valley?
Yeah, he's an English chap who does his own scenery, and he I don't think he has a website, but he has a Facebook page. And yeah, he uses rubberized horsehair for
the horsehair stuff.
Yeah, and it looks great, and it's very affordable. So
yeah. Also, looking at his Facebook page, he's from Hull, which is where I was born and where my mom lives.
Way! You can speak to him in your native tongue.
Old speak. And I can't do how to make trees for gaming video. I know, Javis. It's actually John that came up with it. It's mostly John. I've not done many of them. When you see on the channel the 28mm games, most of those trees are John's, and John did most of that work.
I did the work, but I'm pretty sure you came up with the idea because my trees were getting a bit bald, and you were like, "What if?" And I was like, "Okay, let's see." And I did it, and it worked all right.
Maybe that's true. I don't want to take credit. I don't know.
Definitely did.
What have we got coming up? We have reviewed the new World of Tanks, the miniature set. We have looked at the mouse and the IS-3 and the Centurion and so forth. Things have got a lot busier for me with work, and I think I'm gonna need to move the weekly video release to a Sunday to reliably get one out on time. It just gives me the weekend to edit the video sometimes. Yeah, so I'm sorry about that. We've got half term coming up, so hopefully, again, members will see some stuff going in there. The members area will get reloaded, and then slowly that will be scheduled over the coming weeks, because I can get a bit of work done then. So sorry if you feel the video releases have been a bit slow and a bit samey. They've been really what we can get done between half term. But other than that, everyone who's going to crack on at the weekend, do enjoy yourselves.
Enjoy.
If we can, we'll come and say hi. But I don't know whether we'll get there. But if not, I might just have to give Callum something to take down for the raffle. Mr. Brush and Kill. Well, because he is running the marathon to raise money for charity, even though he doesn't have any legs. And I think that's something.
I mean, that is definitely something.
Running a marathon with no legs is a challenge, but he's going to do it. And he's going to do it to raise money for wheelchair using kids, and that's a really good reason to. All right. Hope you found this video interesting and useful, guys. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for being on, Arthur. Bye, everyone.
Bye.